In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create the lightsaber effect in Premiere Pro with no help from After Effects.
This is how to film a YouTube video or anything.
Trin is going to help me today by providing us with some green screen footage. And one of the keys to doing this effect is planning out the effect before you get it into post-production. Okay, so the lightsaber effect comes in actually two different stages. One is the lightsaber coming on and off, which is separate from the lightsaber swinging around, because as you'll see, when it comes on and off, we can't have any shaft. We just need a handle. So I'm going to give this microphone to Trin, and it's going to serve as our handle. And she'll hold it up, and then it'll come on. This will all be post. And what we'll do is have her hold really still, replace the lightsaber, and then we'll call action again and swing it around a bit, and we'll have a nice effect. Now actually, this lightsaber here is a nice prop. It comes on, it makes a cool noise, has a little light, and all of that is completely unnecessary for this effect. In fact, you could do it with an old broom handle. So I brought an old broom handle. And just to demonstrate that I'm telling you the truth, we're going to get rid of this. We're going to give Trin that, and we're going to go ahead and get our footage that way. Okay, let's get started. Okay, we're here in Premiere Pro Creative Cloud. This is the 2017 release. I've already imported my footage right here. If you haven't, you can do that by hitting Command-I on a Mac, Control-I on a PC, or just double-clicking right here, and that brings up the import window. But I don't need that. Go ahead and double-click on the footage, and that brings your footage up. You can scrub through it, find the spot you need. I've already marked the in and out points that I need. You can mark your in point with the I key and the out point with the O key. And then when I double-click on it, nothing happens, but I can grab it by holding down the mouse button and dragging the arrow down to the timeline, and that creates a new timeline sequence. If you want to see this timeline closer, you can hit the plus key or the minus key to shrink it, and you can hit the backslash key to make it just right, as Goldilocks would say. So here you see my footage. Trin is swinging that saber around like a true Jedi Master. But in order to make her look really cool, we need to put some crazy light glow on that. The way we do that is to create a new matte. You can come down back to the project panel and either click this little folded piece of paper, the paper with the folded corner that says New Item, or you can go up to the drop-down menu and go to File, New, Color Matte, and that's what we want. Okay, just pick the default setting, click OK. And let's make it white. Got to give it a name. Let's call it Saber Light. Okay, our new footage shows up over here in the project panel. Let's drag it onto the top of our timeline, rendering everything white. You can trim that if you need to, or extend it as you may need. And what we're going to do is highlight that, come up to Effect Controls, and click that tab. And what we're going to do is under the opacity, there's a little pen tool here. It says Free Draw Bezier. Nobody calls it that. It's the pen tool. Take the pen tool. We're going to draw 4 points on this white matte. That's going to create a mask. 1, 2, 3, 4. And actually, to close the mask, we need to go back to the first point and close it up. Okay, this is going to be the light for our saber. As you can see, it's not very saber-like, but what we're going to do is match that up to the saber. So what we want to do here is on Mask Path, under the Mask Properties, we're going to click the stopwatch, and that'll bring up keyframes. Now, this is very important. Everybody's done this at one time or another, but if you forget to click that stopwatch, a lot of work you've done, or all the work we do from here forward, is going to be forgotten because the computer won't remember frame by frame what you've done. And this is kind of a tedious process where we have to go through more or less frame by frame. There's a few places we might cheat it. But yeah, basically we're back to the ancient art of rotoscoping. Rotoscoping sounds like some kind of a high-tech computer algorithm that does all the work for you, but it's really quite the opposite. It goes back to the days of animation when you would have to go frame by frame and basically trace the animation that you want to do. And that's what we're doing here. Okay, so to make our mask show up again, you have to click on the mask. You have to get off that mask path, so make sure that mask 1 is highlighted. And now we can go to the corners, and you see when I'm on this part, it's a hand. I can drag it around. I probably don't need that most of the time. If I come to the corner, that arrow turns to, it has a little circle by it, like a degree symbol. That's actually what we want. If I go too far out, I can change the rotation, which we might need a little bit, but mostly we're just going to go frame by frame and move all these corners. So if you think of the saber as a really skinny rectangle, we're going to cover all the corners. Whoops. We don't want to do that. So let's say you do something crazy that you don't want to do. Command Z on a Mac, Control Z on a PC is going to undo the last command you did. That command's going to be your friend a lot in this exercise. There, I did it again. Okay, so let's right now, let's go ahead and zoom in closer so we can see what's going on a better level. And what I want to do is get that. Wow, that's not helping me at all. Okay. Let's shrink that little guy down. Okay, so that's what we want to do, is cover all of the blade. Now what we're going to do is go forward 1 frame. And it didn't move much, so that's good. We can go forward another frame, another frame. Okay, right there it moved. I'm going to go backwards 1 frame. And right here I'm going to mark another keyframe. And what that'll do is just lock that position right where we want it. In between those 2 keyframes that we just created, the computer will take an average. Well, you can see right here. Maybe. You can see right here. Between here and here, the computer will just average that out, which is going to be fine. And the next frame, okay, now it changes, so I'm going to highlight the mask, mask 1, and I have to move each of these corners to line up where they need to go. You can change the magnification to a size that's going to help you out. This is actually a little bit easier on After Effects, but we're doing this tutorial for those of you who don't have After Effects. If you do have After Effects, you might want to close this tutorial right now and look up a different tutorial in After Effects, because that program was made for this kind of stuff, and Premiere Pro really isn't, but we can do it, so we are. Okay, I'm going to move forward another frame, and you just keep repeating this process. Just covering. Remember, every time you screw up and you say, whoops, I wish I hadn't done that, Command Z, it goes back to what you just did. See? I'd like to tell you I'm screwing up on purpose just to show you, but I'm really not. Okay, so you can see that this is kind of a tedious process. I'm going to shrink that down a little bit. And for that reason, when you're filming your footage, you want to be pretty efficient with your swordsmanship. You don't want to just be wasting frames. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to this part, because this is going to show you where the saber goes behind Trin's head. And it's kind of a problem because we actually don't want that saber going through her head. That would be awkward. But we want it to go behind her head. So starting in this frame, it looks like that saber is starting to see how it's going behind her hair. So I'm going to only get the top part here. And now you're Command Z. And you're gonna say, well, what about the bottom half of the saber? Okay, so I'm gonna line up the top part of this. And the way to get the bottom of this is we're going to have to create another mask. So we go to this, we draw 4 more points, close it up, and this is mask 2, so now you're going to have to keep track. Mask 1 is our top half, mask 2 is our bottom half, and with the bottom half, we're just going to fill in the rest of this. But now, when the saber goes behind her head, as it's about to, it won't block her head. If you're in After Effects, you can just create a secondary mask to cover the first mask, but I don't think we can do that in Premiere. So we just doubled our workload. Oh my gosh. Okay, and as you can see, this is going to take a little while. I got to switch back and forth now between masks, or what I would probably do if you weren't here is just, I would go ahead and take that top mask and finish it out to the rest of the footage, and then come back and work on the bottom mask. But either way, you can do it either way. And remember, when she takes big swings and makes a big swath, you want to cover the entire yellow part, or the entire sword part. Okay, so I'm going to just skip ahead to the finished product. Now, once we have the whole thing done, you can see I can just go through it, and she swings that sword around, and the mask follows the saber, just like we want it to. But it doesn't quite have that lightsaber-y effect, so what we're going to do is duplicate this layer. So the best way to do that probably is to highlight the layer, hit Control-C on a PC, Command-C on a Mac, and then we're going to paste it right back onto the timeline. Now it's going to paste it on to the lowest timeline where this blue layer is highlighted. So let's go ahead and highlight this layer. I'm going to move our original one up a couple spots. I'm going to move the playhead back to the very beginning, and I'm going to press Control-V or Command-V on the Mac, and that makes another layer. I'm going to do the same thing, push that up, bring the playhead back, Command-V. There's another layer, and we're going to make 4 total layers, so let's do that one more time. And right now you don't see any difference because they're all exactly the same. But what we're going to do is, with this bottom layer highlighted, we're going to go up to the effect controls. And what we're going to do is play with the mask feather a little bit. So what we want is, on this mask one, we want to take the mask feather and bump it all the way up to about 80. And while we're at it, let's do mask 2, the same thing. Okay, and that gives that nice glow around the saber. And then what we're going to do on the next layer up, so if I were to render that first layer invisible, we're back to the same thing. I'm going to make this layer with, let's go to the mask feather, make it about 60. Depending on your footage, you know, how far the person is from the camera, you can make it more or less. But in this case, 60 is going to work pretty good. If I bring this layer, the visibility back, you can see they're starting to pile up a little bit. Okay, on this third layer, let's go ahead and make that one only about, let's make it about 25. Okay, and then on this first layer, I had it set at 8 already. I think the default's 10. 8 works good for me. 10's probably pretty good too. But I'm not going to change that one at all. I'm going to keep it about where it's at. And now, if I hit play, you can see that it's looking pretty lightsaber-ish, but there's no color to it. So what we need to do now is add some color. And we're going to use the tint command. So go back over here to the effects panel. You can type in tint. And there it is under color correction. Or if you want to just search for it because you like to do things a long way, you go to video effects, drop down menu, color correction, and there's tint. Okay, let's drag it onto every layer for right now. 1, 2, 3. I'm just talking about the lightsaber layers. Not the original footage. If I turn the original footage off, you can see that, we have just the lightsaber here doing its thing. Okay, on the bottom layer, now we get to pick a color for that tint. So, in the Star Wars, there's 2 of them. I must have put one on there earlier. Okay, in the Star Wars universe, the good guys have either blue or green sabers. The bad guys have red sabers. And unless you're Samuel Jackson, then you get to have a purple saber. But in your universe, you can make it whatever color you want. Just for fun, let's make this one red. So I'm going to go to the color picker, and I'm just going to pick maybe a little bit on the bright side of red. Give it a tint. If you want them all to be the exact same color, what you can do here is copy this by hitting Command-C, Control-C, and pasting it on the rest of the layers. It doesn't have to be quite that exact of a science necessarily. Erase the extra tint. So I'm going to map white to that same color, which is, okay, we'll do the exact one. And you can see that this glow is starting to come on the saber. I'll bring our original footage back. Do that to the third layer too. However, on the last layer, I'm just going to leave it white because just because of the brightness, it's just going to look a lot neater. If you put a tint on it, keep it pretty much on the white side, I think. But nah, that's no good. We're just going to keep it white. Okay, so now you can see that let me hit this, change the magnification. Now you can see we've basically got our lightsaber effect. When I render this out, it's going to do a lot better. Time lapse. Okay, there we go. And the green screen for this tutorial was actually completely unnecessary, but it was just to disguise the fact that this was filmed in the Christmas season, and none of you guys could tell, could you? Okay, one final thing we need to do is to make the saber come on. And you'll remember we took this shot with no actual blade in the saber. She's just holding the saber handle, aka microphone. So what we want to do is find the spot where we're going to turn it on, which is right here. Go to the new icon, pick color matte, and the color we're going to pick is white. So you can go ahead and rename this layer to something like white saber blade, and this is the layer we're going to make our blade out of. Okay, just drag that on top of the footage, so all you see is pure white. You can trim the end here so that it matches up evenly. And we don't need any of that out front. So we'll just trim it to the start point. All right, the thing we want to do is go into the effects controls. Under the opacity, we want to create a mask just like we did for the blade with the pen tool. Only now we're not going to have any guides. So what we're going to do is take each of these corners and we're going to go right to the end of the handle and start with just a really small sliver of light. And I think you can see where we're going with this. We're just going to extend it out a little bit on the next frame. And okay, very hard to work with. I should have zoomed it in a little bit. Okay, in the next frame we just do the same thing, extend it out further. And again in the next frame. Now when we filmed this, we had Trin hold very still so that hopefully we won't have to do too much guessing about where the blade is. If she was swinging that handle around, we would have a lot of trouble, even more trouble than I'm having now, figuring out exactly where the blade is. Or in other words, it's hard to make the blade come straight out of the shaft without something to guide it, especially when it's swinging around. Okay, now with just these few frames, I think we're going to have it. We can go ahead and straighten it up a few more frames so that it's not perfectly static, but it looks a little bit organic. You know, it moves around with her natural body shake. But really, that's all there is to creating the saber on. And then, of course, we're going to do the same thing like we did for the other saber. We're going to duplicate the layers 4 times, bring up the mask feathering, and change the color to match the other blade. And what we'll do to fix the gap between this shot and the final shot where she swings it is we'll just add a little insert of a really handsome but intimidating looking villain. Let's go ahead and take a look at that now. And that's how you do it. Thanks for playing. I'm Jeff McClelland, and this is How to Film Anything.